everybody. Welcome back to the Chalk Talk session, part 2, where we're going to talk with Michael about the deep dive with EasyLive.io and talk about what we mentioned in part 1 of going into the interface, taking the Chalk Talk show, which is mine, and putting it in and uploading it up into Easy Live. So we're going to dive into that in just a moment. But first, I want to welcome you to the channel. Thank you for being with us. Love to hear your comments, your feedback on this discussion. What do you think about production in the cloud? Do you have any thoughts, considerations? If you're new, please hit subscribe, and it helps build the community and what we're doing, as well as it also helps engage in terms of the comments and things that we're trying to gather with the live streaming community as a whole, with creators and people that I talk with. So in the last part 1, we talked about EasyLive.io, and Michael kind of went over who EasyLive.io and what they do. So I encourage you to go check out part 1. But if you don't know who EasyLive.io is, here's a quick video before we jump into the conversation with Michael today. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hey, John. Thank you. I'm well. Thank you for having me again.
You're welcome. Fantastic. So Michael has graciously, we worked together and we brought what I've been doing on another platform and brought this into EasyLive.io so that you can not only see us walking through the platform or the solution of what EasyLive.io provides, but also we're recording this in EasyLive.io. So you're going to see not only, so we took, with Michael's help, took best of both worlds here. So Michael, thank you again for your time and working through this, I think, and I'm really looking forward to just doing the deep dive a bit on this. As we kind of dive into this, I'm thinking about, that we'll cover some elements of the interface and talk about that. So maybe we'll just jump into the screen sharing mode and we'll switch over right now.
Sure. This is, so you can see now the interface of EasyLive.io, and this is another control room because we are right now recording this actual session in EasyLive. And so it's you, John, who is the switcher of that show. So you're the host and the switcher. So this is a collaborative environment. So it's very important to understand that in the cloud, you can have multiple people working together at the same time in the same control room, which is very much more difficult to do it when you are a local setup because the people need to be in the same room. Right now, we are in two separated, locations, but still contributing and working together in the same control room. And you're switching actually the show. And this is another one that I want to show you because it's something very similar of what we are doing right now, having 1, 2, or 3 remote speakers talking together about any kind of subject. And so this is a typical news or talk show use case, okay? And so EasyLive works very simply in the production side. So I'm already in the production where we can see different layers and different inputs. And just to explain quickly, we have a logo at the top, we have some lower thirds, some videos, so pre-recorded content that's going to be played along this workflow. And we have 3 remote speakers that will be talking with each other. Okay. And so if I go through the workflow that I created, it's this looping video. We cannot see it looping right now because the server is not started. Okay, we are just at the setting up stage, but you will understand the idea here. And when I switch over a slate just to announce that it's going to start soon, and when I want to launch the intro video, I just have to click on 3 because I created that workflow, to make sure that every time that I hit the 3, it's going to play that video. And then you can imagine that I'm bringing up the host of the show. So this is a full screen speaker 1, and I could have some lower thirds on top of that speaker. And then I could be switching to another speaker. So it looks like very much the previous one, but this one could be Deborah instead of Michael. And then I could have a third speaker that could be Roman, for instance. And then finally, and this is what is happening very much. So here we have in that recording you and me, you at the top, me at the bottom, so cropped so that we can fit within the design. And this is the idea of a three next to each other design with those 3 speakers talking with each other. And I would like to share, do I have that here? Yeah. And this is the final result that could, have when you're recording actually with the server running. And so the 3 live sources actually be ingested in. So yeah, so that's a very basic workflow, which is very, very popular and very easy to create because you just need to upload your material. So the overlays, create your lower thirds, layering those properly, and then create the hotkeys, which are actually the presets or the scenes. And you can have this type of workflow built within minutes.
Yeah, no, I think this is very interesting that is Michael's kind of gone through this, but Michael, to your point, it is pretty straightforward. And as you build these scenes out, I know is there ability to lock in once you've got all the variables set in terms of the scene layout and overlays that we're using for production? Obviously, you can lock that in there so that as I jump between scenes for everybody watching this, you can see that, there's not really any adjustment that's needed, right?
No, yeah, exactly. So in each hotkey, you can save the position, the size, the cropping, even the volume of each live source. So you can really create all the scenes in advance and then roll out, and it's as easy as just pushing one button once you want to switch between different scenes.
Yeah.
And once we created a certain workflow, like we built your workflow within Easy Live, now it's just a matter of creating a new live again and again. Because if I go back into my calendar and I want to create another event, let's pretend for tomorrow. Okay, let's pretend that I have another news to create. It will create this new event from the layout of today, December 10th. And so I just create and go into my new control room, and everything is there exactly as I left it. So if I click on one, it push back this looping video, etc. If I click on 8, it brings back the 3 people talking with each other. So I don't need to rebuild my workflow again and again. It's already there. Easy Live is saving my workflow for me. All I need is just to enter to my control room and switch. It's that simple.
And I think that's kind of, in part 1, we kind of talked about kind of the TV scheduling style aspect of as you showed the calendar. And for everybody, like in part 1, Michael and I talked about that, especially with SimLive and different elements that we're playing. But in this instance, that's super helpful because the workspace for production nothing's more frustrating like, okay, well, we got to schedule out and have to go rebuild everything. If you can replicate that, it's like a show that you're doing on a daily or weekly type pattern. It's nice that you can just do that and then make subtle modifications as you need to do it based on, what the requirements are. That's very cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, it's collaborative. So it could have, several people working together. So this is just one part of what we are doing in the production, okay, to the actual video switcher. But you could have someone else, taking care of the publishing. So what goes out, the program feed could be published to multiple destinations in multiple qualities at the same time. So you could have a 6 megabits live feed going to YouTube, for instance, because we know that YouTube likes 6 megabits, while on Twitter, you would never send a 6 megabits feed because a lot of Twitter users are on their mobile phones. So it doesn't make sense to push that high quality, but rather a 2 megabits. And so you could select here Twitter, for instance, so this Periscope instead of a YouTube. And you can go to other destinations, custom destinations in RTMP, SRT, or HLS. Okay, so you could have one person in charge of those outputs, making sure that we are sending the actual final production to the right destinations, while the switcher could be here. And eventually you could have someone in the recording session to make sure that we are already clipping some of the parts, of the talk. Let's pretend we have a nice guest, someone famous or an expert that says something that is very compelling and resonating with everyone. Someone from the social media could be clipping in real time, okay, on the fly, and push that clip of 20 to 30 seconds directly on Facebook, Twitch, etc. Right away. So that's the idea of this collaborative environment, having several people working together in the same virtual control room.
And that kind of hits on what we talked about in our previous discussion about, and I'll use a term somewhat carefully here for people not to confuse anybody, but there's a term we call today REMI, but what we're talking about is the remote production team. We talked about, the studio is still, the physical element of the studio is still out there. It doesn't really go away. However, given the fact that we're taking the advantages of the scale and the infrastructure of the cloud, as I mentioned in our part one, is just like a good building, we need to have a good the construction of the building is only as good as the materials that you're using. And so as we're kind of going through this, we're looking at it, okay, well, everybody has a part of this process in constructing what we're doing and ensuring that as part of the remote production team, like you said, somebody's handling the output and destination management. We've got somebody handling maybe audio, maybe somebody else is handling the production, actual control workspace of the switcher, and just monitoring those and then communicating with, from a producer perspective, with those that are on air, right? In terms of the interviewees or the talent you're bringing in. So fantastic. I think this really kind of provides another insight for everybody. Hopefully is getting this, is that, what we're doing here is we're really leveraging the software as a service or architecture of the cloud and the capabilities that we've talked about for years from a technology perspective, and showing this and taking that production environment and moving it into a new element now. And so yesterday, Michael, we talked about some of the contribution sources and the destinations. I wanted to jump back just for a moment and talk about the requirements, because I think this is servicing, as I talked about the building concept, it's providing one set of materials. We still need the CDN, the content delivery networks, and we still need the destinations and those type of where we're going in, and the web player that you're going to use for custom websites. Maybe take a moment and just make sure that we kind of educate people on that front in terms of where this fits in the chain, and then where, right?
Yeah, this is very important to understand that EasyLive.io as a brick of technology fits right after the encoder and before the destination. So we are in between, either building a live production fully cloud-based or simply securing the live feed which is produced in a physical local production. Okay.
Right.
And so this is very important to understand that EasyLive.io is not meant to host audiences. And so this is correct. We are delivering the live feed in real time to any type of destinations. And if you don't want to be on common social media like Facebook, YouTube, etc., then you would need a CDN, so a custom destination, to host your audience and then embed your private player on your website. This is correct.
Yeah, and I think that's, there's another video that people go check out where I'm talking to Limelight Networks as an example. They're a content delivery network and one of the key players in the space. Akamai is another one, AWS, and there's several out there that provide that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And Akamai is one of them that we are publishing into HLS. So
right. And Akamai would be another big one, which I've spent plenty of time working with the new architecture Akamai has offered in terms of their cloud production type HLS support. And in fact, the HLS support on here that Michael's showing, Michael, this is something recently you guys just announced in terms of supporting that specification for transport.
This is correct, yeah. And so you can deliver different HLS quality, so different HLS feed, if you want your audience on the player to choose, okay, do I want a 1080p feed, a 720p feed, and so you can just send, in different formats and different qualities to the HLS endpoint.
That's fantastic. So I think we've kind of so in terms of, are there additional requirements in terms of what, where would people get started to run it, right? What would be kind of the 101s, if you will, for people to kind of take a look at it and kind of jump into it?
Yeah, so we are offering a free trial of 2 weeks. So everyone is welcome to join and assess, so technically in a technical way, if this is the right fit, and we are here to help, offering some conversations so that we can understand what's the reality, because again, this is a fully cloud-based technology. It means that everything is processed on the server side, not on your local computer. So your local computer is simply one of the sources or only the controller. So that means it is not the computer that is processing all those live sources and publishing. Okay, it's so it works for many use cases, but not necessarily for all of them. So again, if you are in the sports industry with a very so several cameras on the same subject. Like I don't know, like basketball. This is a great example. You cannot solve the issue of synchronizing all the live feeds from all your cameras and switching into the cloud because it's not technically possible yet. Okay, because on one live feed the ball might be in the hand of the player, while on the other live feed it would be already on the ground. So how do you switch between those two angles? It doesn't make sense.
Right.
So that's exactly the type of things that we are talking with our partners and customers, making sure that this is the right fit for them.
Yeah, so I think in that example, that's a good point you're making, because I think people are going to ask a question like, well, can I have multiple camera feeds? I know this is something that we're looking in the industry, the community that's been discussed about, or the discussion has been around trying to get to that next level. Obviously, from a contribution point from the site at the sports, let's say NBA, you maybe have a production system there that's maybe managing this locally, managing the switch and cuts between the camera angles, while at the same time, what's being fed up to EasyLive is just capturing and recording that and then distributing that at a broader, in terms of the scale, right, from a cloud technology.
Exactly.
Right.
And you could be creating multiple productions in the cloud, for instance, multiple languages. So you get the same live feed from the venue, but you would have one commentator in English, another one in French, another one in German. This is very much a use case that fits in the cloud, because then it's not like switching, between live cameras on the very fast-paced same subject.
Right.
It's another added value on top of the local production, you see.
So, Michael, so I think, to your point, because of the social distancing and the challenges that we're not, and the challenge and the requirements we have to meet for production is that we can only have so many people from the production team on site. So now we have kind of a limited crew, types of cameras, and that's being managed, and being able to migrate some of those functions you just described, as far as the localized language support in terms of different areas of for interpreters and people that are involved in that process. Now we've migrated them to, maybe they're at home or they're joining from some other location, and they're still able to provide that value of the production that, without them being physically at the actual site itself, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
That's exactly that.
So fantastic. Well, we've kind of just spent some time here, and I thank you, Michael, for this and going through this and doing this process. I'll switch back to our other view. There we go. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So thank you for your time, and thank you for walking us through this, Michael. We will put some links, folks, in for you to link back over to easylive.io. I'd encourage you to check it out. Hey, share your comments with us and let Michael and I know where you're at. Is this something that you find of value? And we know there's so many changes going on, but we wanted to take this time, and I'm really thankful for Michael's efforts here to just walk us through for a little bit and just give us a idea of the process. And as you jump into this, and this is something actually I'm doing myself, of looking at these tools and leveraging items like easylive.io, is it really does provide a lot of value. And if you're in the webcast production and you're doing sports production or anything that we've talked about, definitely take a look at this. I highly encourage you to, because I see this as the next wave of where we're at. And Michael, listen to Michael's kind of overview in part 1, and let us know. All right. Hey, everybody, stay safe, stay well. Thank you for watching. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.